Before we start this video, a large thank you to Jeff Bates for supporting me on Patreon. You are awesome. Alright guys, hello. In this video we're going to make so a pop-up appears when you're hovering over an interactable action like an item or a lever or a door. So I'm just going to click the 2D button and go to my player UI here, and then I'm going to come down and I'm going to make a game object, an empty game object, for our interactable UI interface. Alright, I'm going to call that Interact Alert. Doesn't matter what you call it as long as it has the phrase interact in it, so you know it's for our interacting bit. Alright, I'm just going to bring this down here. I'm going to resize that, lock it to the bottom of the screen. I'm going to make it rectangular shaped. It doesn't matter exactly what the dimensions are right at this very second. So, make it a bit longer on this side here. That looks good, and a bit longer on this side. Okay, perfect. Now, next I'm going to add an image under that. Let's see here. There we go. And I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm going to click this here, which will make the image the size of the dimensions of the empty game object. I am then going to rename this image to something suitable. I'm going to call it Alert, because this is what will pop up when you actually walk into an interactable object. And then I'm going to add text under this, and this will be the text that changes. So I'm just going to call this alert text. Actually, let's call this interaction text. That sounds better. And I'm going to rename that from alert to something more suitable. I'm just going to hold Alt and make that the same size as the empty game object. And I'm going to put that in the center of alignment and the center. We only have Arial text, so that will do. Text color is going to be white because I'm going to put this against a darker colored background. So I'm going to go up to the alert here. Now I'm going to rename this interaction. I'm going to come out here. I'm going to name this interaction text. Okay, actually, we're going to call it interaction pop-up. There we go. So the color I'm going to set as the same color as the backdrop of the UI here. So let's go over and get one of the colors from one of the slots there. Okay, the alpha is 215 and the hexadecimal will copy that. Minimize that there. Click on the color, we'll paste the hexadecimal code here and set this to 215. Perfect. Wonderful. Alright, let's minimize that here. Let's go to the interact alert and let's make a script. We're going to call this interactable UI. And this will control our interactable interfaces that pop up, such as picking up an item or opening a door, etc., etc. Let's double click that. Now, we need to use namespace SG as is tradition. And let's get rid of the start and update method. We're going to want using unityengine.ui. And then we're going to make a public text. UTI. Oh my goodness, I can't type today. Unity. There we go. We're going to make a variable, public text. And we're going to call this interactable text. And this will be the text that pops up when the interactable box has alerted you that you can interact with something. So the text could be pick up item, it could be open door, etc., etc. Next, let's go to the player manager, and we're going to make a variable for the interactable UI. And then we're going to call that inStart. So we're just going to say interactable UI equals find an object of type interactable UI, because again, when you start the game, there should only be one of these in your scene. Excellent. Okay, now down in the check for interactable object method, we're going to actually create some code for the comments we have lined out here. So we're going to say interactable UI dot interactable text is equal to interactable text, the one right above this line of code. There we go. Excellent. We are going to say interactable UI game object. This will be the game object that controls our little pop-up, which we have not made yet, dot set active true. So let's make that variable now. We're gonna make this a game object variable, and it's gonna be the actual game object with our interactable UI script attached. So we can enable and disable that, which will enable and disable the little pop-up on the UI screen. Excellent. Now we need to call these variables that we've made, or drag them in the inspector. First, we're going to come in here and say else if interactable UI game object does not equal null, then we're going to say interactable UI game object dot set active false. So basically, if you walk outside the zone that checks for an interactable object, then the pop-up will be disabled. And somebody asked in the comments, why aren't you using onTrigger enter? And this is why, because we need it to detect when we actually are away from it too, not just when we enter it. So with this, when we leave the vicinity of the object, it will remove the pop-up. Let's go here and drag in the interaction pop-up on our interactable UI variable. Let's disable that, or set it as inactive, whatever you prefer. And then let's drag the text variable here in the interactable text. Let's press play. And now we have a thing that alerts us that we can pick up an item. And when we walk away from it or at a range, it disappears. Cool, but that's not all we need to do. As you know, there's a bit more to this puzzle. So how do we get it to say the item that we picked up? If you check the interactable text here, if we change this to hello there on the item, you will see that it will display hello there. So whatever text you have on the interactable object, whether it be an item or a door or something, it will pop up on the alert. But that's not all. We need to actually make it so when you pick up this item, it recognizes it as an item and then says you picked up sword and shows a picture of a sword. So let's change this back to pick up item. Let's go into our UI again. Now I'm going to duplicate the alert box I've made here, except I'm going to call this item pop-up. So this will appear if you picked up an item. And I'm going to call this item text, and this will be the text of the item's name. Okay, next in our player manager, let's create a game object for this item text, or this item pop-up rather. So I'm just going to call this item interactable game object. Actually, I might not like that. You know what? That will do for now. Next, over to our interactable UI script, let's add a text for the item name text, which I will call item text. Let's save. Let's drag the item text into the item text variable here. A tip that you guys should be doing that I'm going to do after that I have not been doing so far is call your game objects the same thing as the variable name. So item pop-up in item interactable game object, it should be called item interactable game object. This gets less confusing. I'm going to rename these later on down the road. Player manager item interactable game object set active to true here in the weapon pickup. So basically after you picked up a weapon, we're going to enable that pop-up box, that alert box, right before we destroy the weapon game object, or the item game object rather. And then we're going to say player manager item interactable game object get component text. And we're going to say text is equal to weapon item name. So this will set the pop-up's text to the weapon's name. I think that's supposed to be in children, actually. And then we're going to say over here, if item interactable game object does not equal null, so the same as the other object above, if the variable is not null, we're going to say and if the input handler .a input is true. So if the item name pop-up is displaying and you press A, all we're going to do is say item interactable game object set active false. So this way, when you pick up an item and it displays the item's name, if you press A again, it will clear the window. Okay, let's try that. Pressing A. There we go, sword. Pressing A again, and it's gone. Cool. But again, that's not it. We need to do one more thing. We have to add an item icon, so you can see a picture of the item when you pick it up. So, under item pop-up, I'm going to add raw image. I'm going to put that just above the box here. I'm actually going to make the dimensions a little smaller to my liking, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this because this is just a prototype. So let's say 55 by 55. That looks like a nice size for me. I'm liking this. And then I'm going to copy the color here. I'm going to make a background for this. This actually, whoops, this one needs to stay white, I do believe, actually, or else the image will be tinted when we drop it on it. Yes, that needs to stay totally white. So I'm just going to go ahead now and I'm going to rename this item image. Next, in our Interactable UI script, I'm going to make a variable called public raw image of type raw image called item image. And this will store the item's icon. And we're going to actually drag this item image game object here. There we go, excellent. And now we need to make it so on our weapon pickup, we need to set it so upon creating this pop-up, or enabling the pop-up rather, we're changing that image to the image of the weapons icon that is stored on this item pickup. So we're going to say player manager.item interactable game object.get component children raw image. And then we're going to say dot texture maybe? Yes, I think it's dot texture. Yes, is equal to weapon dot item icon. Oh, it's actually not just that, it's weapon.itemIcon.texture as well. And then we're going to save that. So don't forget to disable the item pop-up window, because that's not supposed to appear until we've gotten to the second pop-up. Pressing A. Sword, and there's the item icon. Excellent. I'm just going to go ahead now and add a background to that because I don't like how it sticks out so plainly in the open, so I'm just going to do that quickly. Perfect, that looks awesome. Great. If you made this far, guys, give yourselves a pat in the back. Now we have a nice little UI displaying our objects when you pick them up. So, please don't forget to drop a like on this video. It does sincerely help me. And if you're feeling super generous, check out my Patreon below. I will see you guys in the next one. Also, look forward to a bonus video this week, and more will be revealed very shortly. It will be out before the end of this week. See ya!